Okay, so we're here with Bruce Bickle for Coffee Talk, and Bruce is in charge of poultry at the Coombs Fair. Okay, Bruce, so how did you get into poultry?
Always been involved with poultry since a little kid, going to my grandparents' farm, and everything was homemade and homegrown there, and poultry were a large part of that. Chickens, geese, and turkeys. So I've been raised with them and just kept the interest up.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your journey through that.
Well, I started out, I think my first fair I went to, I was 18, and that was up in the Lakes District Fair in Burns Lake. And I got a third place there, and that started it. Got me hooked into the
Wow.
competitiveness of it. And I went to agricultural college, and
Wow.
I studied. One of the courses was livestock production. Was poultry raising. Then into adulthood, when I first got a piece of property where I could have poultry, I started back into the fairs, and officially started showing at fairs in 1996. I've been doing it ever since. I've been to fairs all over British Columbia, in Alberta, and Washington State.
Wow. Like you said, poultry applies to a lot of different birds of different types. You chose a particular type of birds?
Well, actually, the main chicken that I raise is the Chanticleer, which is the only true Canadian chicken, developed in eastern Canada for colder weather. The birds have minimal wattles and combs that'll freeze, and they have a very tight feathering that keeps them warm during the winter. The only problem that we do find with them is that they lay during the winter and the eggs freeze. But other than that, it's a good, strong, dual-purpose farm bird, and it does quite well in this area.
Great. Chickens, they obviously lay eggs as well as they're used for their meat.
Oh yes, yeah. It's they're well, with me they're triple purpose. We have meat, we have the eggs, and we use them for show, for competition. And some birds, don't produce a lot of meat. They're rather small. Then we have the bantam, which is a miniature chicken, and they're basically just shown for their color and their variety. They're all set to a standard, and the standard is developed in the U.S., but it's a standard for all of North America, and actually it's used in South America as well. It's called the American Standard of Perfection, and it's basically like an encyclopedia that has every recognized chicken and all the qualifications and requirements for that. So when we have a fair, we'll have a judge come in, and the judge follows the standard as when he's judging the birds in the cages in front of him.
Wow, yeah, I noticed there's a lot of different birds when we come to the poultry barn. When I'm doing some video through there's incredibly different species, I guess.
Different varieties of every kind. Like I said, the standard of perfection is really quite neat because it's got full color pictures.
Wow.
Of every bird that they said is recognized in the Americas and basically in the world. Now there is a different standard in England, and there's a different standard in Germany. They slight variation, but the American standard of perfection is the one that's sort of recognized worldwide.
So if a judge comes to the fair, do they have to know that whole book?
They do. They actually have to go through quite a lengthy 2-year program and an examination to become a qualified judge. Now, the Coombs Fair is one of 3 fairs on the island that are actually recognized by the American Poultry Association, and there's only 2 others in British Columbia on the mainland. So, like I said, the Coombs Fair has a bit of a reputation for putting on a proper show and meeting all the qualifications for the APA. And, birds that win here will actually win or can qualify for shows anywhere.
Wow. So if you enter here and you win, then you've got quite the bird.
Yes, it's recognized, and I said the American Poultry Association publishes a yearbook every year, and that win at the Coombs Fair would actually be published in that book.
Wow. Good notification.
Yeah. And we've had judges from all over the U.S. come to Coombs, Each year we try and get a different judge to sort of vary things up a bit. Some judges' opinions are different from others. And when a bird is judged, it's that judge's opinion on that day and how that bird showed. So, it could be a following day, it'll be a different judge and maybe a different bird because that judge found something that he thought was better in a different bird.
Right. So, considering all of that, is there something that you could give us some guidelines on and as to what the judge would be looking for, some of the major
first
things?
of all, they're looking for a healthy bird. Okay, and good finish. A finish is when they have sheen to their feather and they have complete feathering. So all the bird's feathers are out and they're all in good shiny condition. And the standard also sort of predicts a weight. So the judge will pick the bird up and feel it. And if it's too light, then it's obviously not meeting the standard. And if it's over finished or over too fat, he's going to say that it's too large for the actual standard. So the standard was developed by actually groups and committees that studied each of these birds and put the qualifications into the book. So if the bird at the fair meets those qualifications, then it's recognized basically worldwide.
Wow. Does anybody ever come up with a different breed?
Yes, actually the Chanticleer was developed only 100 years ago by crossing 6 different breeds. So, and then when it breeds true, then it's considered a breed. And then there are sort of qualifications by the APA to recognize it. It has to be raised by 5 different farming operations for 5 years. So it's basically 25 different groups of birds. And when it's recognized that it's becoming more popular and more in populace, then they goes before the committee, and the committee will look at all the qualifications and all the sort of perfections that have done with this bird, and then they will recognize. But it's quite a long process.
Wow, sounds like a long process.
Is, yeah.
So somebody just doesn't put 2 together and claim a new breed.
No, so far there's only been 1 breed developed.
The differences that make like that a Canadian chicken?
Okay, well they were bred for cold weather, so they have no wattle or comb. So that's how heat is often gauged and how they disperse the heat is through that. So it keeps the body heat in. They have a very tight feather, like it's very close together and it's held tight to the body, so it keeps the heat in. So they do extremely well in cold weather, but when it comes to extremely hot days, they don't like it so much, and they tend to seek out the shade and spend most of their time in the shade and during the hot weather, and they'll become really active when the sun starts to go down. They're a dual-purpose bird, so they lay pretty good. There's pretty good weight to them.
Oh, okay.
And so they're good for a meat bird as well. They are used in show, but they're not exactly an exotic or pretty-looking bird. They were bred for the Canadian winters and the Canadian small farm. And this was in 18. When was it? It was about 100 years ago. It'd be, I think it was about 1890 they started, and it was developed and recognized the breed in 1918, just at the end of the First World War. And this was all done by the monks in a monastery in Akwesasne, Quebec. And they bred it for their parishioners, so they would breed them and then send eggs out for people to hatch because they thought this was a really good dual-purpose breed. They took all the qualifications from several different breeds, put them together to figure would they make a good breed that would survive the Canadian winters, because that seemed to be the big problem.
All right. Oh, neat. Cool. Super. So when a judge is judging the bird,
what they're looking for is nice smooth lines. A Chanticleer has a long back, just a slightly sloped up tail. They're looking for a nice smooth comb and no wattle. They're looking for a bright eye. When they're at their prime, they have a nice orange leg. Once the hens have been laying for a while, the leg color tends to fade. but they're also looking for a good firm breast and a long straight keel or breastbone on them. And they are an average size bird. They're not an extremely large chicken, but they're also not really small. So for their size, they have good weight, but I think the hens average about 6 pounds, 5.5 to 6 pounds, and the males are 7.5 to 8 pounds, which is sort of average for a chicken.
Okay.
Again, they were built for production and surviving the Canadian climate.
Super. Thank you.
Canada. That was 100 years ago.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So you're going to see fairly standard ones when you show up to the fair. Quite a variety, though.
Yeah, and it's not just chickens. Again, there's ducks, and there's about 12 different classifications for ducks, and there is also geese. And the Canada goose, the one size of Canada goose is actually recognized as a form of poultry and is actually raised as poultry. Then there's also turkeys and guinea fowl. They're all recognized as poultry.
Wow.
Because they're can all be raised domestically and used for production.
And that's the standard, that they are raised domestically?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Great. Wow.
Unfortunately, a wild goose that flies in on the field net are a bit light. Domestic Canada geese are a bit on the heavier side, and they're meat production.
Oh, okay. Great. So tell us something unique about the Coombs Fair and what you see at the poultry show here.
Okay, well, the Coombs Fair, like I said, is one of only 3 APA standard shows on the island. What I like about it is the fact that it's a sort of a down-home fair. There's no midway here, because that midway and the noises from that are a big distraction for poultry. It really startles them to start with and keeps them really quite stressed. And I've been to fairs where they've had a midway right next to the poultry barn, and it's not good for animals of any kind. So this is one of the things that I really like about the Coombs Fair. The other thing too is that we have a sort of a long barn with doors on either end, so there's a good traffic flow, and the public can get up quite close to the cages and witness it all. And we have a large selection of number of pens for turkeys and geese, which a lot of fairs don't have. So, and there's been many years here that we've filled all of them. So a couple of years ago we had the year of the goose, and we had to actually have some pens built because we had so many entries from this area alone.
Wow. So anybody can enter into the Coombs
Anybody
Fair?
can enter as long as you've raised that bird, and or if you owned it for a minimum of 60.
Wow. And there's a big 4-H contingent in the...
Most years the 4-H is part of the poultry show as well. The kids raise their birds as part of projects, and they are judged separately from the open show. And we usually have the same judge, and the judge will judge them on, of course, their health, their vigor, and their size. But they're not judged against the standard, because in 4-H they can actually use a crossbreed.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. Because they can be used for meat production as well. But what the judge looks for, again, is the health and the vigor.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And I noticed there's a lot of the 4-H kids hanging around with their bird close to them. Can they answer questions about...
At every fair you'll see the birds being handled and carried around, because they are their projects and their pets. And most 4-H kids are more than willing to tell about their bird and explain to the public and answer questions. They're quite proud of their projects. They're a part of the fair. You said here we've seen many times the kids walking around with their pet birds, and they'll be in the pet parade or the animal parade, and it seems a little unusual, someone carrying a chicken or sitting down and having the chicken sit on their lap. but it is a commonplace with the 4-H kids.
Wow, that's amazing. Anything else you'd like to add about what we should look for at the Coombs Fair?
Now just come on down and take a look. You learn something every time you come, and no 2 years are the same.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Bruce. I appreciate it.
Thank you.